All right, welcome back to Load the Box. I am Jelden. He is Will. Follow him on X. I forgot to say this on last week's show for the YouTube audience, but follow him at Will Badloos. All right, Billy Badloos giving you all of the best Vikings, Twins, Minnesota Spouts takes, if you will. Heck yeah. We're gonna talk about the projected Stoutos. Will's got the defense. I've got the offense. I'm gonna make you show the notebook you showed me before we pressed record. Before this show is over. Not yet, because I don't want to spoil your thing. But like, it's pretty good. Like I enjoy that a lot. And I think that's really neat or whatever. But all right, let's talk about. We'll start on my side of the ball. I'm taking the offense because I'm lazy and I'm taking the easy route, where there's not a lot of turnover. Your starting lineup for the 2025 Minnesota Vikings before snap of training camp. Starting at quarterback, number 9.
Whoa, shocker.
JJ McCarthy. Wait, doesn't Sam Howell number 9?
Sorry,
Yeah.
actually that's Max Brosmer.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, Hosmo. No, JJ McCarthy is starting. I'm not going to be able to do the numbers for everybody. I'm sorry. I could for like the skill guys. I can't for the offensive line. I'm sorry. Wearing number 60 or 70, Brian O'Neill. I think he's 75 if I have that right. But yeah, so it's JJ McCarthy at QB. It is Aaron Jones, but I almost feel bad because I think it's going to be a pretty 50-50 split. So it's Jones/Mason. Who cares?
Jones will start. He'll get the first snap.
Yeah. I agree with that. So Aaron Jones is the starting running back. CJ Ham is not in my starting lineup. The Vikings should cut him. Although if they use him this year in a mo, like Kevin O'Connell just doesn't like. I feel like he's never shown the ability to utilize the fullback well. So just get rid of the fullback and throw the ball 50 times a game like you want to, Kevin. Just be who you are. Stop pretending. But if they are going to use him this year, cool. Not with Aaron Jones on the field. So McCarthy, Aaron Jones, Deosall at some point, probably soon. I think he's going to come back early. I think he got injured in time to not miss week 1. Donovan Jackson, and this is where we will have our first talking point, I think, is I do have Donovan Jackson penciled in as the stouto. I alluded to it earlier in the podcast / last week on the YouTube. The O'Connell's post-game press conference after the playoff game was like, he basically just came right out and said, the offensive line is terrible and I'm sick and tired of it. We can't run the ball and our quarterback got killed tonight. This was embarrassing. And so I think he wants to go scorched earth, and I think that's why you saw Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, and then Donovan Jackson drafted. They are all 3 starting week 1, so there's a spoiler for everybody. And then Brian O'Neill, obviously, right tackle. Let's talk about Donovan Jackson versus Blake Brandel for a second. What are your thoughts?
Let's just quick rattle off the rest of your starters, and then we can get into the Jackson stuff.
So that's 5. I'm at 7. So Hawkinson.
Basically skill guys now. Hawkinson.
Yeah. So Hawkinson's the easy one. Jefferson, shocking. Addison, shocking. Ty Felton.
Okay.
I think he wins it out. I really do. Like, I truly, in my heart of heart, and maybe it's just Stephon Diggs rose-colored glasses. I get it, but I think Ty Felton wins it out. So let's talk about Donovan Jackson.
Yeah, I also think the Ty Felton, Jalen Naylor, Josh Oliver, it just depends on what personnel they start with and run the most. Like,
yeah.
If we're going to believe they're going to lean into this running game thing, you're going to see more Josh Oliver. I've always thought that starts in the NFL for skill guys are a silly thing to track because unless you are wide receiver 1, you're not necessarily going to start every single game. You might come out in, 2 tight end fullback set, and then there's just 1 receiver out there. So anyways,
let me put it this way with Ty Felton real quick. Yeah. Ty Felton will have a significantly larger snap percentage than Rondale Moore or Jalen Naylor. Like he will be the dominant wide receiver 3, I think, of all of them. Like to the point where it's like, obviously he is the next guy when Addison leaves, whether that's trade, whether that's free agency. It's going to be Jefferson and Felton in a matter of months, and we'll all be excited about it because I think I really do like him. Anyway, sorry.
That would be great. So Donovan Jackson, left guard. in your proposed starting lineup. I don't think anybody who has paid attention to what the Vikings have done in the last 4 months has any beef with the other four. Nobody's going to say Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. All those guys are established. They're good. Some have the claim to be one of the best at their position in the entire league. You're not going to touch those four. The Donovan Jackson one is obviously he's an unknown commodity to some extent. He is a rookie. But I think, just to remind people, he was a guy that the Vikings took an offensive guard in the first round of the NFL draft. And not only that, he wasn't the first one off the board. And so this was a strong guard draft, which is just kind of strange. But he was a guy that was a guard at Ohio State. That was his primary position. Injury forced him to play left tackle. He had to replace somebody else. He had to jump in there. Anchored the Ohio State offensive line that won the national championship. Had a really good running game, by the way. So this is a guy that I think, he has a level of cerebralness, if that's a word. And I mean, the thing that the Vikings just kept coming back to after the draft was he plays with force and he's really smart. And those are the two things that you just like. I mean, Jordan and I were watching, you're watching the playoff game last year's, and it's just, you're banging your head on the table because force was not a word that I would use to describe the Vikings offensive line in those last two games of 2024. Also, just hearing Jackson talk is a very clearly very smart football player. Very smart guy. He had the highest GPA on his entire football team. So at Ohio State, that is. So truthfully, I would be not only shocked, I'd be really disappointed if Jackson is not starting week 1. Unless he, gets a little injury and can't play right away. But if it's Blake Brandel again, or if it's Walter Rouse, or somebody else, we're in trouble. I think it's that simple because, I mean, God love Michael Juergens and Walter Rouse, these guys that I think, they've impressed enough to stick around. They, weren't cut from the team. They've been on the team since they were drafted last season. Ideally, those are guys that can fill roles in other ways and can be, backups. But Blake Brandel was fine last season, but we don't need to see that again. We just don't need to see 17 games of that again. And I think it's as simple as that. Now, development is not linear. You're not necessarily going to see Donovan Jackson, excelling to the highest level in week 1 and just get better all season. He's going to have some bumps. He's going to have some games where you're, seeing the rookie come out and he's going to get beat by, some of the incredible defensive tackles that the NFL has to offer now. But I'm saying all this because I think it is paramount for the Vikings' near-term and long-term success that he takes that position and doesn't give it back. A la Ryan Poles taking the North and never giving it back. He just got extended, by the way. So Skull Bears.
They won the off season. Let's do. You know what? No, let's throw this topic out. I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm gonna delete the audio. We're just gonna talk about the Bears for the entire show. Our supreme overlord Chicago Bears, who took the North and never gave it back, and whatever.
So I don't think you have probably any qualms with what I said because you had Donovan Jackson.
1,000. You hit the nail on the head. I'll really briefly. You hit the nail. If he does not start week 1, there's gonna be immense disappointment, and it's gonna be like kind of consoling. The same way that look, I get JJ McCarthy. They were like, no, Sam's the starter. If JJ McCarthy was healthy and he did not get on the field last season, like if he was healthy and Sam Darnold throws out that Jacksonville game and they didn't bring in JJ McCarthy, that's really concerning. Now he was injured, so that's we'll never know.
Yeah.
But it's really concerning. And Blake Blandel, just I don't think he's it, man. Like you said it all perfectly. So yeah, no qualms. I want to know briefly. We talked about this earlier, so like we don't have to go deep. Would you be shocked if Ty Felton was good enough to just like beat out pretty good established veteran Rondo Mo and also knows the team, been in the system, Jalen Nailo?
I think I'd be surprised if it was a right away thing and you go to Chicago Monday night, week 1, and he is, seeing 50% of the snaps. I think I'd be a little bit surprised by that. But no, I wouldn't be shocked if you're getting to Halloween and Ty Felton is a big part of the offense. I think that would be a, best case scenario. I think we have to be, ready for the possibility that he isn't a big part of the offense this season. I mean, he was a mid-round pick and, you know, he's got good wide receivers ahead of him. He's so all that, but um I like your thought on it because I think it at least shoots for a level of optimism and aspiration that I think if the Vikings are going to maintain a level of wide receiver effectiveness, having a young guy like him step in is going to be important. Which at the time of the draft, I think me, like a lot of Vikings fans, were kind of like, "Huh? How do we get a wide receiver? We got 100 of them." But it's a position that you can never really have too many of, and they know the future. They know that Jordan Addison's going to command a lot of money that they're not going to be able to pay him. And so, anyways, no, I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, I maybe that's just optimism, and I think it is the Stefon Diggs rose-colored glasses. I've been watching a lot of like old Viking, not old. I mean that's 8 years ago, but my heyday of Viking. Like that's the I will tell my grandkids about like back in my day. Case Keenum
Yeah.
just did this. He just
And
did the
I
damn
think
thing. Like,
I think we'll see in training camp elements of that. And for those fans who are like, why should I care about training camp? This is a reason why you should care about training camp because we'll get to see some real life snapshots of what JJ McCarthy looks like
yeah,
against a real NFL defense. And then the joint practices happen in August and you'll get to see what Ty Felton looks like. And if you go to any training camp practices, which I would highly recommend to anybody who lives in the area, it's totally worth it because you get to see actual reps of these guys going against each other. You'll get to see Ty Felton lining up against Byron Murphy, and you'll get to see how he fares against him. And so I think we'll see pretty quickly. And I think the Vikings coaching staff and, Vikings on the boots on the ground reporters, they'll be able to see pretty quickly what this young kid's doing. And, just to harken back to a topic we talked about in the first show of position battles and all that, Dwight McGlothern was a guy that continued to be talked about by his coaches and his teammates in a manner that, like you were saying, a back of the bench guy should not be getting this much airtime. But it's not just the fans who think he's, got a funny name and would love to see him play and made a cool play in preseason. He's getting noticed by his teammates and his coaches, and everyone's still talking about him. It was the same way with Ivan Pace his rookie year. It was like, oh, this guy from Cincinnati is awesome. And so we'll see pretty quickly. If Ty Felton's getting a lot of chitter chatter, that'll be a tell.
for sure. Well, let's move
Let's
to the defense.
let's talk defense. So I'm just gonna disclaimer here. I put this starting lineup as just a base 3-4. There's gonna be so many iterations, like we've talked about with Brian Flores. So this leaves a lot of room for discussion and debate. But for me, I like to start up front because I think that's where football games are won. The middle three are going to be Harrison Phillips, Javon Hargrave, and Jonathan Allen. The outside linebackers will be Grenard and Van Ginkel. No real shock there. I do think Dallas Turner has a chance to insert himself in that spot as the season goes on. The inside linebackers Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace Jr., no shock. And the outside cornerbacks are really just the cornerbacks if you're going to go with just a base 3-4, Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers. And then safeties, Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus. Thoughts?
So it kind of sucks because that's the right answer. Like, yeah, that. Sure enough, that's who's gonna start. You know what I mean? But
tell me what could happen, or what is like a reasonable sort of hot take of like what the right answer, how it could be the wrong answer.
I think.
Tell me what could change.
I think okay, again, and this is where we get into like in terms of Stoutos, it's spot on. I'm interested to see, similar to how we said like the Aaron Jones thing. I'm interested to see what the defensive line, again, not talking about Dallas Tone on Andrew Van Ginkel fighting, like the joke of breaking a pool cue in half and making them just duke it out for their lives, but not that. The three defensive linemen, what's the rotation gonna look like? Like how much are we gonna see of guys from, last season? Are we gonna see, Prospect X, Levi Drake Rodriguez, here he comes. He's a 7th round pick. He's gonna stout. He's gonna change the fortunes of the team. Here he comes. Are we gonna see him get some mix? Are we going to see the dude from the XFL whose name is escaping me right now?
Jalen Redmond.
Thank you. Oh, like how much is?
I want to see him.
Yeah, so do I, dude. Like he's so okay. This is my problem. When you have a bad something, you get attached to the guy that does the best at being bad. We all did this with the guy with Duke Shelley. We all did it. We were like, Duke Shelley was awesome on the worst defense we've seen in 50 years. Duke Shelley was just the best. Why did we get rid of Duke Shelley? And then the defense gets a lot better when Duke Shelley leaves, because Duke Shelley was like, he was the shiniest part of a giant piece of crap. And maybe that's Jalen Redmond. Like, and I shouldn't poop all over the Vikings D line last season, like specifically the inside. We did okay, like in some like the key metrics and stuff, but like in terms of like generating a pass rush, non-existent. Like just complete. The Rams ate us for lunch. And again, it's hard to nitpick the team last year. They lost to 2 teams, but the Rams, the Lions, they knew what it was. Push the edge rushers wide, build a pocket. No one's coming up the middle unless they blitz, and if they blitz, get rid of it quick and you score a touchdown. It's easy. Like, we made it too easy on teams, because really the only guys getting pressure without blitzing were Ginkel and Gonald. So I'm interested to see, how much, who gets like the most rotational pieces, because I think the 3 guys you listed get a majority of the snaps, but how much of Redmond do we see? Does LDL take a bit of a jump and actually become, all that? He's the first guy in the gym, and he's, the first thing he asked was, when can I get my, gym pass? And, I just want to come work out. And I'm such, like all that, like, what? And I sound like I hate this guy, and I don't. I like LDL, but like, who's gonna be the rotational piece that maybe the Patriots pay $100 million to next season because he dominates in a Super Bowl or something, and all of a sudden it's like he's a hot commodity. That's one area that I see. We already did the Harrison Smith snap count discussion, but and then the other question for me is and again, we've already had this discussion, so rewind the podcast to watch last week's video. Who's gonna be that third defensive back? Like that's gonna be a big question, and I think right now in the base defense, it's Isaiah Rodgers and it's Murphy Jr. So I like what you say, that the interior defensive line will be a point of question for me, and until it is very much like, until they prove that it's not. I mean, until week 5, it's going to be like, is it good? Can we trust them? Harvey Dent, can we trust them? A lot of Batman the Dark Knight references tonight. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up the defensive line, because I think, if Hargrave and Allen and Phillips are healthy, those guys are going to play the lion's share of the snaps. There's no question there. But guys like Jalen Redmond, LDR, even the recently drafted Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia, could he make his presence felt? He played kind of all over the defensive line in college, so theoretically he's a versatile guy. A little smaller, 276, rather than the typical 300 for an interior D line. So um, there's snaps that could be had there. The other guy that they just love talking about is Taki Taimani. Do I think he's gonna get a ton of run? No, but he's just got a great name, and it'd be fun to see him play real snaps this year. I think, like you're saying last season, I think in hindsight we look back at that defensive line from last year and we're like, man, they were bad. But the Vikings had one of the best defenses in the league, and they had one of the best run defenses in the league. So to look back on that and really just poo-poo it is unfair. I think they all very clearly recognize that the pass rush from those interior spots was lacking, and so that's why you get Hargrave and that's why you get Allen. Um, and you know, Jalen Redmond was a guy who did get a little bit of push from the interior. So I think maybe if I had to predict which one of those guys maybe gets the most of that, kind of back group, I think he maybe has the he's sitting in the catbird seat, as they say, to have more opportunities. But um, depth, man. I mean, you're gonna get injuries, and
especially when
ideally a lot
all
of
of your
those
D
guys.
tackles are like 30 plus years old. Like
Exactly.
that's
Yeah. I mean,
tough.
Hargrave's 32, Allen's 30, Phillips is 29 or 30. Um, yeah. I mean, I think I might be overshooting Phillips's age. No, Harrison Phillips is 29. So yeah, I mean, these guys are no longer spring chickens. So
I think I want to throw a take in here. Really interested Ingram Dawkins or whatever his name is, the kid out of Georgia that we drafted. Um, really interested to see like it's 3rd and 12. Phillips, get out of the game. It's time.
yeah,
It's time to bring in the missile package, the bullet package, whatever you want to call it, and it's time to rush the damn passer and get the fatties out, get the pass rushers in. And I wonder if Ingram Dawkins, like if that's the thought, is like, yeah, he's undersized, but if he can rush the passer, he can make a name for himself doing that. And then okay, maybe it does become a spot where it's like in a couple of years he is a stouting D tackle, and we just accept that, like, yeah, he's a pass rusher, and we really only have one or to two like run stoppers. And yeah, they're gonna try and pick on him, but we scheme around that because he brings such a presence as a pass rusher. So I'm interested to see if he will bring that as an undersized interior lineman.
yeah. And Flores is always so multiple with his packages and the bullet package, whatever he called it. Um, that one's gonna be fun because, like you said, Ingram Dawkins, Dallas Turner will be in part of that. You can probably even keep a guy like Jonathan Allen in there, because of his pass rush
Yeah,
ability. Hargrave maybe too, because I think maybe what hindered the Vikings a little bit in the past is they'd get in their speed package, and then the Lions would audible to a draw, and they'd just run on 3rd and 10, and they'd pick it up because all the Vikings had in there was a bunch of outside linebackers. Um, and now some of that is just the Lions offense in the last few years just being incredible, and some of that is personnel. And so um, I think you have more flexibility finally with this defense where Brian Flores was making the world's best cake out of ingredients from Aldi. And now finally he's shopping at Lunds and Byerly's. And he has every possible option. He's got flexible guys, he's got guys who can brush the passer, guys who can stop the run. I just think he's going to have so much fun making that cocktail. Okay, enough food references. Um my final thoughts for the starting lineup portion of the show is pretty simple. Something I just mentioned on the previous part of this show, talking about the position battles. I think you're going to see a lot of three safety looks again. I think Vikings fans might kind of groan at that because that's kind of what we wanted to get away from. You want to have more established corners, but I think especially to start the season, you're going to see a lot of three safety. You're going to put Josh Metellus on some tight ends. You're going to trust Theo Jackson to cover some slot guys. I just think you're going to have more of that than straight, traditional nickel. Because they really trust their safeties and they really like their safeties. So I think don't be surprised if you see all three of those guys out there at the same time. Yeah, ideally, Nudie or Makai Blackman step up and take a spot where they're penciled in. They are, they're written in ink. They're written in ink that they're going to be on the field on passing downs. That would be ideal. But don't be surprised if early on we see a lot of three safety.
I like that. My final thoughts. Let me just piggyback on your final thoughts for 1 second. As long as none of the safeties are getting juked out of those shoes by Jahmyr Gibbs multiple times a season, I'm okay with it. The Cam Bynum strays will continue to be thrown because I'll never
forgive him. It's going to be
retired,
and you're just still going to be.
It's going to be
firing straight.
I'm going to tell my grandchildren someday. I'm going to be like, in 2017, Case Keenum was slinging the rock all over the place, and in 2024, Cam Bynum couldn't make a tackle to save his damn life. That's going to be like me, all crotchety with gray hair, and the Vikings still haven't won a Super Bowl, so I'm mad about that, and I'm in a home, and it's a terrible existence or whatever. But my final thoughts are simple. We didn't really have time to get into it. It's kind of a hot take about your Cardinals. The Vikings should sign Jack Jones. He's still a free agent. No one wants him. He's a piece of crap. I get it. Okay, but come on, man. He's good at football. He picked off JJ. He's the only man to ever pick off JJ McCarthy in the NFL. So that's something. So he could teach young JJ his ways, and then JJ McCarthy will never throw an interception again. I'm being so serious. They should sign Jack Jones. It was originally I kind of floated with they should sign Jair Alexander, and then he immediately went to Baltimore, and that was that was me opening the floodgates on well, we could take a little bit of toxicity in the locker room if he was good at football, right? And now I'm like, no, let's just bring it in. Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. It might cost everyone their jobs. I don't care. Bring him in. If Jack Jones comes in, Jordan Addison gets arrested again immediately. I feel like they would be gas in a match.
They'd have to trade Addison the next week.
Yeah. Addison all of a sudden is high, driving 120. He has guns in the back seat. All of the worst driving offenses. But no, legitimately, he's a good football player. I think at this point he's been cut for 3 months, and no one has really touched him. No one's kicked the tires on him. Bring him in, give him a tryout, sign him to a cheap deal. One wrong sneeze and you're out. And if he sneezes wrong, you kick him out. And if he is just really good at football, then you have a really good football player. And maybe he, values making millions of dollars and being a stouting NFL defensive back more than racketeering or whatever, he's being charged with. So that's my final thoughts. Sign Jack Jones. Just pull the trigger.
Last thought on that. If there's organization in the NFL that like that, it's probably the Vikings. They build a very solid foundation, and could you find a spot for him to, grow? Crazy idea.
Yeah. No, I'm all in. I'm not all in, but I would like to see it at this point. If I'm gonna buy Madden 26, Jack Jones is gonna be in the game. He's gonna be a free agent. He's gonna be an 82 overall. I'm gonna sign him immediately, in my Vikings franchise that I'll play, and he's gonna stout. And sorry, Makai Blackman, you're probably getting traded for a 3rd round pick. Again, this is Madden franchise. We shouldn't do that in real life. All right. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hammer that like button. Karate karate chop. That we almost
Edit.
X-rated show. Karate chop the bell notification icon. Gentleman suplex the comment section, whatever, like all the bull crap. Follow the show at LTB Vikings. Follow Will at Will Badlose. Still trying to talk him into changing it to Billy Badlose, but it's a whole thing. We'll get there, guys. We'll get there. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys next week. Training camp is like, by the time this posts on YouTube, training camp's here, so we're talking about it. So, as always, I will leave you guys with Skull Y'all.